order. And if we can please start with the roll call.
Trustee Clayton. Trustee Clayton.
Here, can you hear me?
I can now, thank you. Trustee Dickon.
She muted.
Trustee Dickon, can you hear us? Trustee Dickon.
Why don't we come? Oh, there we go.
You can't hear? Okay. Bruce Huvard, can I mark her as present if we don't have a verbal?
No, but she'll probably be able to hear us a little bit later.
Okay. Trustee Eastman.
Present.
Trustee Haber.
Present.
Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
President Ford.
Here.
Thank you.
And if I could remind everybody that I don't believe we're supposed to use chat to talk to each other during the sessions. Is that correct, Council?
It's not a good idea because those are part of the conversation. So it's an open meeting. So don't do it. Lilia, can you hear us now? Can you unmute Lilia? Maybe she can record herself as present for the meeting.
Yes, I am present.
Okie doke.
Mission accomplished. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second,
Are there any comments or additions or deletions to be reported? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton.
aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Haber.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a report from the village ecologist. And I don't believe we have anything to report there. The next is the treasurer's report. Trustee Clayton, would you like to present that, please?
Okay, I sent out the summary revenues and expenses and the change in cash balances in an email, I think, over the weekend. I haven't had any questions, just some things just to note. But looking specifically at the general fund, we still have the benefit of the grant, so we're running $130,000 favorable to the budget in the police department. At the same time, under expenditures, under road bridge, we have a substantial overage to budget, which is the result of $142,000 of snow removal, $40,000 which was booked in April. So those two things kind of offset each other, and therefore we are approximately on budget. Our actual year to date is a deficit of $248,000, and our budget was a deficit of $250,000. So we are tracking, but only because those things offset. In regard to cash, all the funds are where we expected them to. In the general fund, we reduced the cash balance in the general fund about $32,482 in April, which is less than it had in the previous months. So we still have total cash of almost $13 million. That's it.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right place, Chris, to talk about, because it was the cost for snow removal in the hundreds of thousands that went over the budget. Do you want to discuss that issue now or at some other point? The idea that we have no way to verify that the services were done.
This is probably a good point because it had to do with the budget. Go ahead.
All right, it started last year, but it came into play more again this year when I was requested to approve the snow removal. And the snow removal literally is in the tens of thousands of dollars. And I have absolutely no way of knowing, first of all, if the snow was removed, if they go 2 or 3 times a night to remove the snow, whether salt was put down, what streets it was done. We have no way to verify any of this. And I had written to John and copied Chris as well, but I'm concerned because I'm approving a bill over which we have no ability to verify that it was done appropriately. I don't have a great solution for it, but the cost is significant, and I'm very uncomfortable with it. So I asked Chris if we could bring this up for at least a board discussion. I don't know if this is the best time, but I just don't like the idea of being put in a position of approving bills at that level of expense. If it's $150 for a copying expense, that's one thing, but $150,000 I think needs some oversight.
Okay, Henry, I apologize to you. This is probably a better thing to talk about under approval of bills.
That's fine.
Because it is a little change in the
Okay.
procedure there. So
That's
I
right, yes.
apologize to you. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. What I'd like to do at this point, though, is to refresh the appointment of Hal Roseth as our treasurer. And I'm not entirely sure if I need a resolution or if I just need the board's approval. Bruce? You're muted.
You're just asking the board to concur in your reappointment of Hal as treasurer.
Okay, all right. And does that need a motion?
Yes, and a second.
Oh, okay, all right. I've worked with Hal for a number of years. I think you're all familiar with him. And I am just always and continue to be very confident of his abilities and his knowledge on the investment side. And I would like to just confirm that with the board. Is there a motion so that we can discuss it?
So moved.
Second.
Now, is there a discussion about this? Any comments, suggestions, concerns? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton. Sorry, trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Engineers report. There we go.
I don't have any of the usual items to report, but I do actually have a wee presentation. I failed to get this on the agenda, but I thought I could cover it under engineers report. This is our annual NPDS presentation, and I can run through this in 5 minutes or so. It's a requirement of our NPDS permit. Daphne, are you able to let me share the screen? Let me, okay.
Bruce, are you coming to help?
Yeah, do you have it?
No.
But if you could remind people what the NPDES permit stands for.
Well, that's all part of the presentation, Bruce.
Patience, patience.
So everybody can see my screen now?
Yes.
Yep. Well, this is our annual update on the MS4 program under the NPDES permit process. And there's a few acronyms here. NPDES is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. And MS4 is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer. Believe it or not, this is year 18 of the NPDS program. Our little NPDS permit's an adult now. And each year we are required to do a presentation, which we're now in the middle of. So we dutifully got our notice of intent into the EPA on February 26th. Everybody's NPDS MS4 permit expired on the 28th, so we stayed in good standing with the EPA by getting that notice of intent filed timely. This is just the brief background. Again, it's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and it requires a permit for the discharge from any MS4, municipal small storm sewer system. This was, of course, when it first came out, it was fairly radical, right? We suddenly needed a permit from the state to continue to discharge stormwater where we've been discharging it from, for decades. And every 5 years ago or so, they revise the permit and they clarify some of the requirements and they add new requirements. So the new permit is out now. The permit all throughout has generally had the same basic requirements, and that is to develop, implement, and enforce a stormwater management program plan, then implement that plan and track your progress, and then annually report to the IEPA of how you have complied with the permit requirements. And what goes into the stormwater management plan are these minimum control measures. And it's another common acronym, BMPs, best management practices. And ultimately what it means is communities have a great deal of flexibility in how they interpret and how they comply with these requirements. Obviously, the village of Riverwoods is different than the village of Deerfield. We're largely an open drainage system. We don't have a whole lot of storm sewer outside of Thorngate and Meadow Lake. So we have, over the years, we've tried to certainly comply with the requirements, but, customize them to fit Riverwoods. We will, as always, prepare the annual report that's due at the beginning of June. And then we maintain a website which is a requirement of the permit. And there is a link, at least there always has been, we should confirm that it's still live, from the village website to our website where people can pull up those annual reports. We have the results of water quality testing posted there. It also is a place where people who observe some sort of untoward stormwater discharge can report it, and then we can follow up on it. This is just the cover page from the village's stormwater management, the stormwater management program plan. Wendy has a hard copy of this at the front desk at Village Hall because EPA stops by just randomly out of the blue to audit. And that's the first thing they say is, where is your copy of the plan? So every time Wendy tries to give it back to me, I say, no, that has to stay here so that we have it on file if the EPA comes around. This was last updated in 2016 because that's when the last time the new permit came out. I have every expectation with the 2021 permit. We'll revisit this and revise it accordingly to comply with the current permit requirements. These are some bullet points of what's in the plan. And the main takeaway from this, wherever possible, we rely on either what the county regulations are through the watershed development ordinance or things that the county does. In other words, we rely heavily on a qualifying local program that somebody else manages to demonstrate our compliance with the permit. And then mostly what my firm does is keep us in line with number 3, illicit discharge detection and elimination, and pollution prevention for municipal operations. And Riverwoods, again, we have very little municipal operations in this context. We don't have a garage, a public works garage where they're working on vehicles. The police go out of town for all their vehicle maintenance. We really a community without a public works department that this is pretty easy to comply with. So our next steps is, of course, we continue to adhere to the plan. Staff training largely consists of having our snowplow vendors attend the county's de-icing workshops to try to, be cognizant of the current thinking in terms of just how much salt they need to put down. Then we'll get our annual report into EPA in June. We will have this meeting again sometime in the next year. In the summer and fall, we will do the dry weather inspections and the stream bank and basin inspections like we've done now for 18 years. And that's it. I would be I'm very happy to entertain any questions or to yield the floor to the next agenda item, whichever you prefer.
So I have a question, Bruce.
Jamerson.
I'm sorry, Pat, I have a question. So when Lake County eventually does the work on Deerfield Road, they are going to be putting in curbs and storm sewers and all kinds of detention culverts and whatever. Is that all is going to eventually fall under this plan? Are we responsible for keeping track of all that, or is the county?
Yeah, it falls to the municipality. This was a bone of contention all from the beginning. Communities with the tollway running through them, or a lot of IDOT highways, and they said, well, that's not our system, that's the state system. And then I remember some years ago, Lake Zurich, there was a big kerfuffle because there was a construction project on the IDOT highway, and it put a bunch of sediment into the IDOT storm sewer, and then it discharged into the village's system, and the EPA came and thumped the village over it. So the good news is that during construction, that's a separate permit. That's an ILR 10 permit. The county will have to take that out. They'll be responsible for everything during construction. Once they're done, there's not a high likelihood of some sort of big illicit discharge in that highway system. So we'll add it to the maps. There's not going to be a lot of inspections that are added. They're building one basin that we'll have to take a look at from time to time, but we'll follow up with them too, because if they're doing, I think almost certainly they're going to have annual inspections that they need to do on it, and we can just piggyback on those. So I don't think it'll be terribly burdensome on the village.
Okay, and then they're probably going to be salting more because it's going to be more pavement. So that's also going to be something we don't have any control over it, but we have to watch it.
Yeah, and it is as we all know. I mean, the Des Plaines River is brackish at times in the winter. We have the added benefit that, of course, Aptekistick Creek comes in kind of sort of in the middle of the village, and that's the discharge from the Des Plaines water treatment plant, and as clean as they get it, there's definitely a difference, in the water chemistry upstream and downstream. Over all the years, we've not. The EPA has never came in to us and said, look, you need to do something about this. It's we track it. We try to make sure that we're not making things worse and demonstrate that and keep our head down and stay compliant.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions for Pat? Okay, Director of Community.
I apologize for ambushing you all with that.
It was just delightful. We really appreciate it. The map was colorful and the presentation succinct. Much appreciated.
Very good.
Community Services, please. Director of Community Services.
Good evening. Couple of things. We found the house, I think 2 weeks ago, up on Woodland Court East, abandoned. It's been abandoned for 2 years. Pool half filled with water, the fence down, trees down, overgrown, just a real poor shape. A lady across the street has been calling and texting me now. I think she saw me over there when I put a red tag on the door. At that time, I did not know it was abandoned. I just thought the place was a mess. And we found out that the person who lived there passed away. House was supposed to go to her brother in Arizona. He doesn't want the house. The bank now has the house. They're not going to do anything with it because they say they have too many houses that are repoed and that's costing too much money. So I got the pool pump today. I got the fence erected around it, so at least it's going to be safe again. We got some of the dead stuff in the front yard cleaned up. They're going to go back tomorrow, finish cutting the grass. I guess the board has to decide, let me know. I was going to have him come out maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, trim it up. The people across the street on both sides were sending out their own landscaping services last year to clean up the property and try to keep it cut. And they were a little upset that nobody else was doing anything about it. And so that now is in the process and it should be finished by tomorrow. So that's number one. Number two is we have this.
Russ,
Yep.
let's, Trustee Hollander had a question.
Yeah, this may be, a little wild, but is there a possibility for the village, if this property can be purchased at a very, very reasonable cost? We don't have a lot of properties in Riverwoods that are empty that are available for lots. And if it's a very reasonable price, is there some way for us to purchase it and hold it for maybe
Open space.
resale elsewhere at a higher price, or to make use of it ourselves?
You know what? Let me contact the bank and see what they're going to do. I know.
Wait a minute, it was just a suggestion, not if you to go contacting the bank, but I just bring
Oh,
it
sure.
up
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
discussion.
right. No, but I don't know. I think Bruce will be able to tell me too, because I think in the past, if a house is sitting or repoed or however you want to call it, don't they have to wait a certain amount of time before they could do anything with it anyways? And I thought somewhere I remember it was like a year. And when that clock would start.
Trustee Jamerson, did you have a point on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had houses like this before, and we've taken them into receivership. Is there a reason why we shouldn't be doing that on this one instead of spending the village's money on this? I mean, maybe we need to spend the village's money, but we should be going after a receivership on this and doing like we have on several other houses, and either have it torn down or have the bank, somebody needs to. We shouldn't be taking all the expenses on. Bless you.
Well, I was going to do what I used to do is we used to just clean them up like this and just put a lien on them. But I don't know. I don't know if the process has changed at the time.
Yeah,
We've done receivership. Bruce can maybe chime in, but we've done receivership several times, Russ, and it's actually been, I think, very successful. And the village has gotten their money back out of it. And in several cases, the houses have been torn down and then sold. So the lots have been sold. I don't know, Bruce, can you comment on that maybe?
we talked about this a little bit at a couple of staff meetings ago, and some of these things were so urgent. I was afraid of trying to get into Waukegan and get an appointment of a receiver and getting notice on everyone. So, and these are lienable items, but now that these sort of urgent health safety issues are taken care of, I think it is my recommendation that we have to incur some costs. We go in and we file first of all, we have to notify the owners, do our best to notify them if we can find them. Of course, here we're going to have trouble. Eventually, we have to convince the court we've served whoever we could serve. Once we get through that, we can usually get an appointment of a receiver. And what they would do is they would go in and do an analysis of the house to see whether it is salvageable. And if it's not salvageable, they'll present a plan to the court to demolish it. If it is, they'll present a plan to fix it up. So we can certainly do that.
And it's deceiving because when I first went out there, you look at the front window, you see furniture, you see pictures. I mean, it looks like somebody's living there. That's why I first thought it was occupied. And now, since I found this out, so I think we should. I was going to take the chief in there and maybe see if we can get in the house and just walk around and take a look and see what. I don't know if there's a basement. Is there water in it? Is there mold? I mean, it's been sitting for so long. I just don't know what kind of shape the inside is in it. Maybe we can get a better idea. It might be a tear down. Maybe it's possibly it could be fixed.
Okay, so it sounds like that we should start moving down a legal path toward receivership.
Sure.
Take steps to make sure that it's that there's not a health and safety issue, and just begin that path. Is that everybody in agreement? Anybody have a question or Trustee Clayton, did you say something or? Okay. I don't lip read, but it, you know.
With the lack of comments, I mean, I just think that we've gone down this path several times, and the receivership path seems to be the one that we get the most action out of, so to speak.
Okay, okay,
The least expense to the village. We do get I think we get money that we put out back to us. So I think that's the way to go. And if the bank owns it, it shouldn't be hard to serve notice on them.
Well, then I'll work with Bruce on that. And we'll get
okay,
something together.
okay. Anything else?
Yeah, we have a zoning hearing coming up here, over at, was it 2240 Riverwoods Road, for a side yard variance. I posted the sign last Thursday, and I think the hearing is June 3rd. So that's, if you go past that, that's what that's about. Also, I served Mr. Scora again with a red tag and letting him know that he was supposed to have his fence finished by the end of May. And I noticed that he has a pile of wood there to finish his fence. Now, he's got about a week and a half, 2 weeks to finish this thing up. So I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that he's gonna do it. But if he's not, then I'm gonna serve him with a ticket.
Okay.
That's where that one stands.
Trustee Haber, did you have a comment before? I thought,
No, just regarding, I don't think the bank would probably own that property on Woodland Court because mortgage foreclosures have been basically stayed during this pandemic. So you're probably going to have to deal with the owner or maybe the owner's estate at this point.
thank you. Russ, is there anything past the,
And the last thing is, as we talked, we're gonna be sending, I got the SEC's gonna go around and just check for any garbage along our major roadways, but also look at any overgrown trees covering stop signs and stuff and trim those back, so at least they're safe again. And last but not least, talking with Pat and Bruce, we've had a complaint about our fire hydrants not being painted, looking real shabby. And Pat says that he's going to be putting together a program that we're going to have to look at doing that because that's going to be our responsibility.
Trustee Jamerson?
I have a question for Russ. You know, in the past, we've been pretty diligent about roadway signs being removed, and I can't help but notice there's a ton of signs popping up all over the village for, you know, real estate
Taxes.
and other various things. I pulled a couple of them up myself because it's against our ordinance. But I'm not sure. I know Lake County usually goes along their roads and pulls them up, but I'm not sure who we have that does it. Rob used to do it when he drove around doing inspections, but.
SSAs might want to be notified of that and they can, you know, have that pulled up too.
Well, we'll take a look. We can figure something out. Trying to get out now is my days. I says with a short. We're working 2 days a week, and it's a short time. It's pretty busy today. Like today, I had to go do 6 inspections and plus process stuff. So it's. But I'll see if I can work something like that into it and get them.
Okay, Trustee Hollander?
I have 2 comments. One is maybe the police, as they drive around the village, can pull it up because they're constantly saying things and that may give us an extra few hands to do it. Not that it's necessarily their job. The second item, you mentioned there was going to be a zoning meeting on a side yard issue. My question is, it's been a long time since we've had a zoning board meeting. Do we have a functioning board? And the past president was Chris's husband, and I don't know if that's a problem.
No, he resigned.
I should probably, if I can, I should probably jump in. It's, we didn't notice it as a ZBA variation hearing. We noticed it as a waiver hearing under the Fair Housing Act provisions that we have. The reason is that the people in the house have some mobility issues and need to put in an elevator. And the only place they can put the elevator in is on the side, I believe. And so if it were at the ZBA, I would be advising the ZBA that we probably have a duty to consider this under the other provision. And it wasn't, we talked about it, and it was kind of 6 of one and a half dozen the other. It wasn't true hardship in the normal zoning hardship case, or maybe not as clear cut. And I thought it would be a good example of how to apply our other provisions for that purpose, the waiver provisions. So that also allowed it to go to the Plan Commission, which has been meeting more regularly, because those kind of hearings go before the Plan Commission. So the June 3rd meeting is to consider a waiver from the side yard requirements in lieu, basically, of a formal variation, and it'll be before the Plan Commission on June 3rd.
Before we leave the Director of Community Services report, he mentioned cleaning up the culverts and things. That gets to a cleanup day kind of a request that I've heard from more than one place now. And as most of us know, we used to have a cleanup day, and we've kind of fallen out of that habit, I guess, with COVID. But because it's late in the game and we're a little short-staffed right now, we thought maybe we just get it cleaned up and focus on getting a cleanup day with a community event next year. So that comment has not been ignored about cleanup day, but we're trying to take care of it in a different way this year. Trustee Jamerson.
I got that the email as well, and I did respond directly to Trustee Eastman about it. But just so everybody remembers, the RPC was the group that was behind the cleanup day, and the reason it stopped happening is because people stopped volunteering, and it was the same group of RPC members that were cleaning up the road all the time. And it's a lot of work. So I'd be thrilled if the village would start it up again and the village would take it over. It would be fabulous.
Well, you know, we've got a great partnership with the RPC, and so maybe we can all work together. But let's focus on next year with that kind of thing, and maybe by that time we'll have some more community events and be able to, drum up some more support and more volunteers. So again, that hasn't been ignored, and I actually I did see Trustee Eastman's message, but I had one within hours of being sworn in last week or so. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it's not being ignored, it's being done, only in a different way. Zoning Board of Appeals, I know, did not meet. And your comment, Trustee Hollander, is well taken. The president of the Zoning Board of Appeals did resign, and we've had one other resignation. So if anyone has any candidates for a place on the Zoning Board of Appeals, forward me their names, and we can, hopefully have a full Zoning Board of Appeals at some time in the near future. Plan Commission report, Bruce?
I think we just covered it.
Covered it? Okay. Police report, please.
The activity since the last board meeting is in your packets. I do recall somebody at the last meeting when the building department was giving a report saying it would be helpful to see activity from 2019's pre-COVID. So I did include comparable numbers from 2019 for year to date. And what it's showing, which I knew, but showing the board, is that we've had year to date this year, we've had 1,055 calls for service. And that's comparable now to the 1,033 calls for service we had in 2019. In 2020, due to COVID, we dipped to 2,852, but now we're back at our usual numbers for most types of incidents. So things are starting to get back to normal. Prior to going to a statewide radio network last year, the Riverwoods Police Department belonged to the East Shore Radio Network, which was several local departments that we all got together, and we were on the same radio network, and we shared infrastructure costs, and we paid annual membership fees and dues towards the infrastructure, which we no longer need. So we recently dissolved the network. once all the members had completed migrating to the statewide network, which we did last year. So the group agreed to return the remaining funds based on the proportionate percentage each member paid in. So on May 13th, we received a check of our share for $12,068.53. Also, village ID cards. I'll be making new ID cards for the elected officials and village employees that will have Mayor Ford's name on it. And I'll be getting those out. I will need the new trustees to either send me photos for the cards or to make arrangements to stop in at the police department and we can take their photos if they prefer that. So, and that's all I have.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, village attorney's report.
Most of what I have is on the agenda. I just wanted to remind people that there are some online courses for training and Open Meetings Act requirements. And I know they used to encourage all the new trustees to participate in those programs. They're online with the Illinois Municipal League. I don't know, Daphne, if you could probably point people to them, but especially, given the fact that we're meeting remotely all the time and we have so many questions that come up about the Open Meetings Act, I think all the new trustees and anyone else who just really wants a refresher, it's a valuable thing to take that online. I think it takes about an hour, and it's a very valuable thing to do.
Trustee Clayton.
I was wondering what some of the development things we haven't talked about for some time, specifically federal, the last mile distribution center and Thornton's. Is there any updates on any of those things that you could tell the board?
Yeah, Thornton's is proceeding with some survey work. They called me up the other day and they're contacting Russ to go out and have some survey work done on the site. I get the impression that they've engaged consultants to do some of the third-party reporting that has been dragging for a while. Federal Life, I have had a conversation with a potential buyer. I try not to say too much when it's still a potential buyer, but they did contact us and ask us a bunch of questions, Pat, Glenn, and I. And I think that they're working on trying to get under contract again for a townhome development. I have not had any contact on the last mile distribution center in some time. So I don't know if they really are under contract now or not. No one's contacted me, probably in 3 or 4 weeks.
Is it appropriate for you to reach out to them?
Well, the last time I did, they told me that they wanted to meet with us in early May, I think. I said, that's fine, just let me know. I don't know how far, we're here. We're not, we're always available. Someone wants us, they can get us. So, sometimes I just get the impression that, there's still discussions going on, that things haven't been finalized. And so therefore, they're not ready to meet with us. Although I will say that we have been getting a few inquiries from, again, third-party consultants. A zoning analysis firm contacted, who was it that they contacted? Pat, was that you or Russ that they contacted about the zoning on the 37 acres?
That was me.
Yeah. So, that tells me that somebody is doing some investigation, some due diligence. That's all I know, Mike.
And also, just for information, the guys that are they're going to be doing all their surveying and stuff. They're going to start Monday on the 37 acres. He contacted me today, and
On the 37 acres, Russ, or on the village parcel?
I mean on the village parcel. Village parcel, yes. So he said they would be out there Monday to start that.
Okay. Trustee Haber, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Bruce, when you're talking about the training programs, are the new trustees required to complete the sexual harassment training program?
Thank you for reminding me. We probably all are required to do something like that.
Well, I know we did it last year, but
I think it's an annual thing. One of the things that Mayor Ford and I have to talk about are going through the personnel manual and figuring out, some of the recurring things that we need to catch up with. That might be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. On my list. Is there any other comments or questions for the village attorney? Next on the agenda, information items and comments from the president. We'll start with the review of the Deerfield Road. And Henry, if you could lead us through that, please. Just a little status report would be helpful.
Yep. The only thing I'm going to mention are things that are maybe new or additional information that we haven't had before. I'm not going to go through all the things that we already have talked about in the past. Just a quick note, there's going to be a public hearing on the 25th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. There's a website available and all the documents are on there. We've had several complaints, several meaning 4 to 6 residents, some of which come from both a husband and wife. I wasn't sure to count that as 1 or 2. Talking about the sound wall, and they don't like it. They don't like the looks. They don't know why we can't do something about it as a village. I've explained to them that this really is a vote based on those affected residents, if the certain criteria were met, which they were. And although we'd love to try to do something about it, we're very much limited. We do have some influence, as I understand it, for the look of the wall. The county is willing to discuss with us the material and the type of the visual impact. But that's certainly not something we're going to be dealing with in the next few months. I am not sure how aggressive these particular residents will be at the public meeting. And I will say the county has spent a significant amount of time addressing this issue. And there is a whole large document on the website on this issue alone. And the last item is that although I have not had any comments, I don't know if anybody else has, letters have gone out to those residents whose land will be affected by the road, explaining the process in quite a clear detail and what's going to happen and what their choices are. Not having had any comments that I know of in about 2 weeks that it's gone out, my expectation is there won't be any then, but just to let you know that the letters have gone out. And I really have no other news.
Trustee
Mike?
Clayton.
Just again for the board's information, largely at the direction or behest of the RC and Lori Breakoff, there was a meeting with the county yesterday between the RPC and the engineering firm and Department of Transportation and Commissioner Maine, primarily to go through the environmental assessment and to questions about some of the work that had been done with that filing. And it was quite an extensive conversation, kind of far-reaching. And at this point, the follow-up is that there were 20 questions that were submitted to the county by the LEC, and going to be responding to those 20 questions. I would encourage anyone who has comments about the environmental assessment to please post them formally part of the public hearing process so that we can accumulate all the feelings of the community as we go forward with the project.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on Deerfield Road? Another, okay, on a completely different note, we've gotten a request from the chair of the Deerfield High School after prom for a donation. And in the past, the village has donated $1,000. And I think that falls under the mayor's spending limit. And so I would just like to ask the trustees if they are still supportive of a contribution to this group. Trustee Hollander.
We have a process that I thought we put in place 2 years ago for any type of donation, trying to meet some type of objective criteria, and it was a committee formed. it certainly is under your purview, but I would say that as long as we've gone through this process for all other donations, that this should not be an exception. At least, I don't understand why it would be an exception.
Okay, possibly because number one, it's coming in pretty late and they need the money more immediately. And I didn't understand that they went through that particular, I know there's a form and there are questions and things like that that they need to submit. So we can certainly go back and ask them to do that. Are there any other comments?
If I can,
Yes.
my memory is that we've done this every year for many years. And when the mayor mentioned it to me, because we didn't have enough time and we didn't have it on the agenda long enough in advance, I suggested just asking you if the same consensus to support this was ongoing, and if so, that it was within the mayor's purview to spend it. So it wasn't an attempt to really not follow the process. Trustee Hollander, it really was just this came in late. It's a transition year. We haven't had very long to kind of get our feet on the ground. And this is one that's not been controversial for a long time, but obviously put it under the mayor's comments so that if people felt differently, she could.
Could pull it and we can come back. Trustee Hollander?
I have no objection to doing it. I just wanted to reiterate that we do have a process for public monies to be given out. And if you want to make an exception to this, I certainly would support it. But
Trustee Jamerson?
I would agree with Trustee Hollander on both points. We have done this for many years, I think as long as I've been on the board. And so I don't have a problem with you using your purview to do that.
Trustee Haber?
No problem with it. I would move that we authorize the $1,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second that if we can.
Well,
Well,
It can because it hasn't been noticed properly, right?
it's sort of symbolic. So I would suggest that the mayor just take the note of the feelings of the board and move on without a formal vote on this one. We didn't have it on the agenda on Friday. We didn't know about it.
are there any dissenters? Okay, we will do that and we will do it differently the next time. We'll do it according to process the next time. Thank you very much. I was going to make some comments about kinds of things that have been going on in the last 2 weeks. We're looking forward to the Lauterberg and Amen transition. We're going to talk about the change in the building approval process. We had a meeting with the building department to try to get a revision to the site development manual in play so that our consultants and staff were all on the same page with forms and process and so forth. I had a conversation this morning with our website developer and there will be some changes there. I pulled the compensation and benchmarking study from 2017 because we know that we need to take a look at our staffing and so forth. And just matter of housekeeping kinds of things like getting together an emergency call list and not just for medical and police emergencies, but who do you call if the roof leaks, if you need a plumbing problem in either of our buildings, and hoping to house that kind of a list and that kind of resources in a couple of different places, the building department, the police department and so forth, just so we know who to call when there's a window that's broken. So there's we've got some appointments to do for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, I'm soliciting candidates for that from the board if you'd like to take part in that. And next meeting, I hope to formalize the committee assignments and really affirm appointments to the Plan Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, both. Just kind of housekeeping, cleaning things up, documentation. And so with that, I'm going to ask for your patience, especially in procedural matters. And I am certainly asking for the assistance of the trustees. And I've really appreciated everyone's comments and support. So Having said that, if there are any visitors that wish to address the board. Were there any emails? Nobody's out there.
Chris, I have one comment.
Yes,
I get my FOIA training on the same place on the Attorney General's website where all of you get your Open Meeting Act training.
Oh.
And I just looked at their website. Apparently it's been hacked. So it's been down for quite a while. So nobody
Well,
can
how-
get training right now.
how about that?
And Bruce mentioned IML, maybe they have something too, but the one I'm familiar with is on the Attorney General's site.
So, trustee Clayton,
The IL has a handbook, really elected official that I find extremely useful. And I would recommend that.
I can get you the information, Chris, so that you can make it available to trustees. You can order, several copies and it's not very expensive and it's a great little book.
okay,
I'll send everybody the link to the Attorney General's site. Hopefully it'll come up again. But right now it just says the site is down.
Wow.
yes, and information technology is also something we're looking at here.
Just as a matter of protocol, we have visitors wishing to address the board. So
We do.
Chief Dano, can you see emails coming in? I just want to make sure that we're checking.
I'm sorry, I should have commented. There are no emails.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing none, hearing none. Approval of bills. So this is where I think trustee Hollander, we want to have the discussion about the approval of bills and how do we know we've gotten services for the fees we've paid. I suggested some time ago, and I am happy that we can go through with an approval of bills rather than having invoices presented to the trustees at a meeting. Let's make it a little bit more efficient without eliminating the oversight and control that the board can still exercise. Certainly looking at the list of bills that comes in, and certainly any of those can be pulled for further research if any trustee wishes that to be done. And certainly questions are in order at the meeting as well. So at this point, I think trustee Hollander, you wanted to talk about snow removal, and if we could have that discussion now.
Yeah, it's because of the large dollar amount and my inability to oversee it.
Yeah.
I brought this up. I really, it seems like most of the time that the bill oversight seems to work. We certainly have trustees that have questions periodically on it. I have no objection to the process, but it was in this one area that I felt we should have a better way of making certain that the services were done.
Trustee Haber.
I think there's a process that we can maybe work into the snow removal, which is a GPS tracking process. And I think there's software that I think it's fairly inexpensive. Some of my clients use it for other purposes, but I think it could be probably adapted if the snow removal company would allow us to have the GPS tracking device on the trucks that service our community. Because then we could track their location on snow days. And with that, we'd at least know that they were here on the indicated day and how many hours they spent. It's fairly efficient. I think it's fairly inexpensive. We might want to investigate that.
Trustee Dickon.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Michael had said. So it's not actually a GPS. It's there's an app available, and the contractor who has a cell phone would actually just log his hours and the services that he had performed. And because of his geographic location, we would be able to tell where he's at or where he was. So the technology is available and it's fairly inexpensive.
Trustee Jamerson.
We have that for our service trucks. It plugs into the port that the emissions people plug into your car, and I'm sure the one that Trustee Dickon was talking about is the same thing. But the one we use, you could actually watch their route as they had run it. So to Trustee Haber's comment, so there's several different ways to do it. I think it's worth the discussion with the snowplow people. The only hiccup I can see from a contractor's standpoint is that they may not have the same person and or the same truck running the same route every single time. So it may be that, but I'm sure it's something that can be figured out.
Yeah, monitoring services, I mean, for something that sizable, I think there's a good point to be said there of a certain dollar amount. Trustee Haber?
I mean, I think potentially, Bruce, maybe you could opine on this, that we could maybe put it in our contract that the snow removal company provides us with their GPS tracking data, because they probably have GPS tracking on their trucks just internally. And maybe they could then provide us with the data, which we could then evaluate to determine whether or not the trucks were here when they say that they were here.
Well, I was gonna,
Sure, we can do that.
I was just talking with the mayor today, and I would have planned to probably in either July or August, put together a new proposal. Because this one is long gone. It was actually expired 2 years ago. So I'll put together a new proposal for snow plowing, and we could add that in as an item. And I'll get Bruce to help me word it so it goes out to everybody who bids. So they'll all have an idea what they have to do. And also, I asked the guys, I'm going to ask him now, the guy that's doing our stuff, and see if he does have this or if he uses it anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Cleaning up the contracts and going out to bid, I think is on the list of things to do as well. I know I pulled one off of the list on the website issue to check into that and what services we were using and exactly how it was working. So you'll see it next time. Any other questions on the new process? Any questions on any of the bills? Trustee Clayton?
I was looking at, I guess it's vendor number 858 on page 3 of the report, and a whole bunch of snow removal bills, and then the last one, 21-29742, the signs for $2,878. And I was just curious, is our snow removal contractor doing anything with the signs? Or is that
Yes. He was replacing the signs. We had a couple of signs that were knocked down or missing on some street corners and stuff. So he's got a sign shop that he makes signs for other villages and stuff. So he does that. This guy does a lot of extra things. So he's a jack of all trades. But the sign. Before I used to get the signs when I was there, we had a guy that was in Northbrook and he used to do them on the side in his garage. But I think he's retired or he's gone from the area, because when I came back, I had his card and tried to call him, but he's no longer available. So this is when I had these signs when I first started last year. This was the only guy that I could find that was going to be doing the signs and replacing them, because I had 4 or 5 streets that people were calling me on right away and saying they had no signage and blah blah blah. So he was the only choice I had at that time. So that's all I had for them.
Trustee Hollander, you had a comment?
Yeah, it's a public hearing, and we certainly talked about the snow removal. I don't want to leave the impression that there's any question that the services they did weren't done. I've spoken with Sam several times. I know the company. He's been very cooperative in multiple areas over the last 2 or 3 years that I've been involved with him. So I don't want to cast any aspersions because of our conversation, but I want to make that clear.
He works with the chief a lot because, during the night, I mean, they don't come out on their own. It's usually an officer or the chief. Somebody usually calls them out and says, hey, the streets are getting slippery. We need some salt here or whatever. So, I mean, our officers could probably verify a lot of the stuff that they do get called on.
Trustee Hollander, I think your point was well taken. When we have large expenses, we should be questioning, and I think it's a good point. Okay, if there are no questions, may I have a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now we can have a roll call, right? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Bruce, would you like to
The
lead us through
first-
the ordinance?
Yes, let's do this. The first item is an ordinance proposing the establishment of Village of Riverwood Special Service Area number 35 for road improvements benefiting certain properties on Clendenin Lane and providing for a public hearing and other procedures. Somewhere back in the packet, I think on about page, getting there, 26 is a memo we kind of quickly threw together. The map of the proposed special service area, the full map is attached to the ordinance. It's also reproduced in part on page 2 of the ordinance. I tried to, in the memo, summarize a long history, and I don't mean to, say anything negative about anyone in the process. Naturally, there have been discussions and differences about how to take care of the roads over many years. Some people have gone along fine and just done everything they were supposed to do. But the issue essentially is that Clendenin Lane, the north part of it, runs through 5 lots, which were platted with Julie Lane. And so there's never been an easy or natural division between the lots who take care of Clendenin and the ones who take care of Julie. I mean, in theory, those lots should take care of Julie, but then they're using Clendenin. The people on Clendenin shouldn't be taking care of Julie. You can see this has kind of gone in circles for a long time. And if I'm offending anyone, I don't mean to. I'm simply trying to say it's been a tricky problem to sort out, and the residents have come up with a solution, which the majority of them, a great majority of them, seem to support. The solution is to form the SSA, including the 5 properties at the north end that were platted as part of the Julie Lane subdivision. That's actually called Luoff Woods. Make them part of the SSA to take care of Clendenin. And then Julie Lane residents would voluntarily not charge those 5 properties for the upkeep of Julie Lane, which they would retain to take care of for themselves at this time without an SSA. SSA boundaries do not have to be coterminous with the way properties are platted in a subdivision. As I think about the Luoff Woods subdivision, I don't think that association has explicit lien rights. So it's not as if the property owners would be included in this new SSA would be potentially subject to lien rights from 2 different places. Of course, anyone in an SSA is subject to the lien right for the taxes. So there would be a total of 37 properties in the SSA as proposed. And when we took the estimate of probable cost that Pat's firm put together and distributed that among the 37 properties, with that many in the denominator, it seemed to gel this time, that would be a manageable project for that group to undertake. I have talked with Trustee Dickon a little bit about it, and also some of the residents on Clendenin. Our role, as always here, is to try and find what the residents want. This is, from what I understand from the majority of residents, would make the most of them happy, and they would probably have enough petitions to get it passed. I can't say for sure that everyone who is being proposed to be included in the SSA is going to be happy, but that's not always the case anyway. So this is basically our standard format for an SSA for road purposes. They have gotten some assessments from Gewalt Hamilton. The budget for repairing the street led to the number for the bond issue, proposed bond issue. I think in this case was $440,000. We've talked to Northside Community Bank about pricing for bonds to sort of give everyone an idea and a range of what the interest rate on the bonds could be. Because of the timing, and what I say now will apply also to the next ordinance on the agenda, we can't hold a hearing earlier than 60 days from tonight. So this ordinance proposes the formation. If we adopt the ordinance tonight, we can hold the hearing on July 20. After the hearing, we try and collect petitions if residents are in favor. If we get the requisite number of petitions, then the board can act to actually establish the SSA probably in August. And we hope by then we would have design and bids and specifications far enough along that we could actually let the work, maybe like by the end of August, coincident with the bond issue. So that's the plan for SSA 35. I don't know if anyone in particular from that group is here. Maybe Trustee Dickon has anything to say, but that's basically, it's a proposal to form the road SSA.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, we had discussed the concept of the village taking the bond because the interest rate seemed to be higher than what we could earn on our own. And since we thought we might have a way of earning the village money by this method. And my impression was the board was very favorably inclined because they were our own streets, and we were in a sense subsidizing it as a village either way. Maybe that's the wrong word, but if my memory serves correctly, this was something we were going to consider strongly the next time it came up. I don't know what the interest rate is now, and I don't know what part of the bond would even apply to us, but I'd like at least some discussion of that.
Could I suggest that it would be relevant once this is formed, because we have plenty of time. The decision about who to purchase the bond can be done in a matter of days in August. So it's really not an issue that is really that germane to whether we should propose the formation of the area.
Right.
They want to issue bonds to form it at that point in time. I mean, if this goes forward and if SSA 22, which comes next, goes forward, you're talking about almost $900,000 of bonds. At that point, you may well want to get the treasurer involved and have discussions about the overall makeup of the investment portfolio, concentration of risk and things like that. So, I mean, I remember what you said about it, and it's true that we could find someone other than a local bank to buy the bonds, but I'm suggesting that that's a discussion we can have, once we have bids and are really much closer to the decision on how to finance it.
Can I ask you a question, Trustee Hollander? Are you talking about the village buying the bond? Or are
Yes.
you talking about the village making a loan?
I don't know the difference between the two. I just know that if interest is going to be paid and it's more than we're earning elsewhere, I'd like the interest to come to us. And as far as waiting until, because the bond can be done in 2 or 3 days, I think this is $1 million, and $1 million is too much to wait to the last minute to make a decision. I think that we ought to look at this beforehand and say whether we would be prepared to make this decision at the time and not wait until it occurs, because this is an old subject.
If you're talking about interest to the village, I think you're talking about the village making a loan.
Okay,
And now I don't know if the village has the ability to collect via the tax bill on that loan.
Let me, I guess what I'd like to talk about this when I have time to provide you a whole background of how we might do this.
Mhm.
Because the first issue is whether the board wants to adopt the ordinance proposing the SSA, and whether post the hearing, the residents actually support it. We don't know that yet.
Getting a little ahead.
But we don't have to wait till the last 2 or 3 days either. I totally understand what your point about that. We can,
Okay,
I make a move that we waive first reading for an approval of an ordinance proposing formation of SSA 35.
Okay.
do I have a second?
second,
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickon,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Haber,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
You're muted.
Trustee Hollander,
something's wrong. Aye,
thank you. Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Okay, is there a motion for a second reading and adoption?
So
So
moved. Second.
Any further sorted out? Any, is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Ordinance 210509.
Thanks.
Okay, second item on the new business agenda.
This would be an ordinance proposing an amendment to SSA 22 for a special service area that's already been formed. As you know, when we establish them, the establishing ordinance lays out what the purpose of the special service area is. If there are bonds that are being proposed, it lays out what a maximum interest rate would be, the maximum amount of the bonds that are authorized to be issued, that kind of thing. We did amend SSA 22 recently, but that was only to increase the maximum annual levy for maintenance taxes. The bond component that had been talked about was not in the ultimate ordinance that was passed because the residents didn't didn't petition in favor of issuing bonds at that time. Since then, they've done a lot more discussing and thought about the condition of the roads. The estimate of probable costs again is much higher than they would like. But at this point, I think the residents, pretty solid majority, seem to feel that they don't have a choice, but at this point to really rehabilitate the roads. So this ordinance doesn't establish the SSA, but it proposes to amend it. And when you propose to amend an SSA, you basically go through the very same process you do when you form it. That is, you propose to amend it, you set a date for a hearing, in this case, again, July 20. After the hearing, you wait to get petitions in, and if you get enough, then you adopt an ordinance concluding the amendment. This amendment would allow for the issuance of bonds up to, was it $400,000? I'm going by memory, I think it was. And the only difference in the financing terms between this and the Clendenin SSA proposal was that these residents were willing to contemplate a bond issue of 15 years. So there's room in the ordinance to go out as long as 15-year maturity, slightly longer. If that's what the residents want to do. We're not obligated to do that. It's a more costly financing vehicle, but it's something we can look at. So this is what the residents have proposed that we consider tonight. And if we adopt this, then we'll have a chance to have a hearing on July 20.
Trustee Jamerson.
I have a question, and it's probably directed more to Pat. I have no problem with the ordinance and the SSA, but I'm just curious. One of the statements was that they're going to possibly raise some of the roads, and I'm looking at the FEMA map for that area, and it appears that most, if not all of it, is in the special flood, a special hazard area. So where would they would have to provide compensatory storage for that? Where would they put it, Pat?
That's part of all of the SSA 22 residents that I've talked to now are much more knowledgeable about compensatory storage than they ever wanted to be in the past. And we talked at length about it, and it's that on this one we'll go out, we'll do detailed surveys, and it's going to be a finesse job. It's going to be a combination perhaps of lowering some of the other roads by an inch or two. It's some roadside ditch work, and we need to get into it and do the detailed survey and see if we can finesse that. It's not a huge volume. So, the idea is to get it without, a wholesale tree removal.
Okay, thanks. Can I make a motion while I'm talking to waive first reading?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Is there a motion for a second reading and adoption?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Ordinance 210510.
Okay,
Last-
next,
Last
next,
item is the approval of a resolution approving a director and an alternate director to SWACO. As you know, we're a member of the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County. The terms of the people that we appoint on behalf of the village to serve on the SWACO board expire in odd years, such as this year. And under the bylaws of SWACO, we have to appoint a director and an alternate director. We recently made it possible for us to approve an immediate past village president as an alternate director. We still have to have an actively currently serving board member or chief, executive officer of the village as the director. So the resolution before you would appoint Mayor Ford as the director and John Norris, our immediate past village president, as alternate director for a 2-year term ending April 30, 2023.
So moved.
is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Resolution 210503.
Next on the agenda is the culvert replacement on Shawnee Trail.
Pretty basic. We've done a few of these from time to time in the Indian Trails subdivision. Those are, of course, village maintained streets. I usually am successful, or we've had a pretty good track record. If somebody's redoing their driveway and their culverts failed, we try to squeeze it in with that. This one came to my attention just because we had an enforcement action immediately adjacent, and those folks said, well, hey, that culvert's no good. That's the real problem. And I said, you know what? I agree. That culvert is dilapidated and beyond repair. I will take care of bringing it to the board for approval to have it replaced. And that's where we're at. I have the 2 quotes that I got from a couple of small contractors that we use pretty regularly. One's $9,000, the other one's $9,500. So I think we've pretty well established the value of the work. So my recommendation is we go with the low quote of $9,000 from Canyon Contracting.
Trustee Jamerson.
I have a question. It appears that and it's hard to tell from the second quote because it gives almost no detail, but the first quote says they exclude landscaping, plantings. Is that something we're going to be on the hook for as well?
No. So I've been in contact with the property owner. He's also got, there's some decorative head walls on either side of the driveway. So I've been coordinating with him saying, look, I didn't quite say it, but look, we're doing you a favor here. You can do a little bit of cleanup, right? And he said, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. I'll move.
Trustee Clayton, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'd appreciate a little background on, I understand the street is maintained by the village, but why we're responsible for driveway culverts, drive culverts.
It is 100% a policy decision by the board. For many years, driveway culverts were, well, many years. When I first started in the village, driveway culverts were the responsibility of the property owners. And that changed over time. And the village determined that part of it, I think the first time it really came before the village perhaps was on Wiggum Road. There was an owner there that whose culvert had failed and came to the board and prevailed on the board to replace those. And I can't put my finger on exactly when the shift came. It's not uncommon. For instance, Lake County, if it's a Lake County highway, the county replaces the driveway culvert. But it is 100% a village board policy decision. The board, in my estimation, could also adopt the position that the driveway culvert, because it only serves that one property, is the responsibility of that one property. But for the last decade or so, the direction has been that with the road comes the driveway culverts.
So is that the same theory with mowing the ditches and everything else that I believe that we are doing?
It's hard for me to put a complete rationale on the parkway maintenance, because that does seem to be just a matter of inertia, right? The village certainly maintains the Port Wine Road Parkway, and to some extent, I think on Hoffman, but say for on Saunders, the village doesn't do any parkway maintenance. So that is certainly worth revisiting as well.
My personal feeling is we should revisit all that, just because it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not maybe Trustee Hollander as the road trustee can.
Thank you, Rick.
Nice, very clever, very good, very good.
Right off.
That's a nice segue.
Yeah, that's excellent. There are a lot of policies that maybe we should take another look at, but so.
If we're gonna, I think that maybe it would, let's get a dollar figure too. What is the cost of the village over the last 5 years for providing services other than pure road maintenance? And let's see if this is a significant enough amount that we want to make an issue of it. At least that's where I would start the approach.
So it's the maintenance of really the easement area.
Yeah, we made a big deal out of having other owners clean up their own culverts all throughout the village.
You know, I'm looking at our regulations, which right now require that the owner maintain the culvert. And I remember the situation on Wiggum, and I'm trying to remember, that was a very unusual case. There was a claim that a lot of the problem with the culvert was caused by other issues with upstream properties, and it shouldn't be all that property owner was accepting a huge amount of water from all these other sources. But I sort of think that if we're going to have a policy, we ought to have a policy that's consistent with what we put in the code book. And if the code book says that culverts are going to be maintained by private owners, then we may be going down the wrong road if we don't have a consistent match between our policy and our code.
This is also a stormwater issue, I suspect. Stormwater management. Trustee Hollander.
Also, whoever's downstream after you clean this up is now going to get a lot of water.
Well, there are two properties that are downstream from this particular culvert. So and you will be hearing from them again, right, Pat?
They're actually on the upstream side. So
upstream, sorry.
Just from a obviously the practical perspective. I mean, one thing we all know for sure, when if we're going to compel people to do work at their cost, there's going to be a lot more on the administrative side of getting through that process. I mean, that's just the reality. So 100%, I'll pull together. I can pull together the what we've spent over the last 5 years on driveway culverts. We'll need to sort out the policy. If we're coming through with a road resurfacing, do we or do we not address driveway culverts as part of that? Because it will not be possible to coordinate with multiple owners and have that all come together with a construction contract. And then really, I just am hopeful that I can get some direction on this one in particular tonight while we perhaps revisit the policy.
The feeling of the board. How about a motion, and let's see where it goes. If there were to be a motion on the floor, if there was a motion, can I get some kind of indication?
I'll make a motion to adopt it so that we can see what the sense of the board is. A motion to spend the $9,000.
I'll second it. Not that I'm
Okay.
in favor of it, but I'll second it.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Further discussion.
So I'll jump in and say that I think that because it's been our policy in the past, even if it hasn't been in writing, and that Pat has gone out and talked to the homeowner and probably, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Pat, but I'm probably guessing that you probably said something like the village is going to probably take care of this. And maybe you didn't say that, but I'm just thinking in this case, as much as I hate to spend the $9,000, I think we should go ahead and approve this for this case. But I would really like to see a policy decision made that matches what we have in our ordinances, and also determine if this is stuff that we're using MFT funds for, which we all have already talked about many times. That, you know, we've got a big project coming up on Saunders that we know is going to cost lots of money that we don't have right now. And so I'm in favor of doing this one, but I would like to see a policy. I'd like to see us come up with a policy before we do this again.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Jamerson, but I'd also like Pat to explain further, not tonight, but explain further the consequences if we stick with not covering culverts when you go ahead and redo the roads. I'm not sure that I fully understand the complications that would ensue, because that would, depending on what that is, it may cause me to change the idea of where the policy is now. So maybe at some future time, Pat, you can educate us on what would happen.
Yeah, I'll put together a memo. Bruce, you and I could probably put our heads together a little bit. I mean, I guess I can quote out of the code too, but yes, I'll get the village some background on that.
You know,
Trustee Haber, yeah.
Bruce may recall this too, but my recollection is that one of the reasons why we started informally doing these culverts was because residents weren't managing their culverts, and it was becoming increasingly more of a problem for other people, other neighbors around, and it was an enforcement issue. And so that's why I think there was a move towards doing it. Obviously, you know, enforcement is never easy, but, you know, something that we should certainly be considering if it's part of our code.
Well, interestingly here, probably by fixing this culvert will amplify the village's position on the enforcement actions that are the upstream actions that are probably going to be back before the board here in the June meeting, where people have put some rocks in the ditch and we've told them you have to take them out because it's interfering with drainage, and you're not supposed to be putting materials in the swale and in the ditch that's the village right of way without village consent. So we have that issue, and I think probably partly in reaction to that, when you saw a culvert that wasn't functioning that they were complaining about, the natural response is, okay, we're going to fix that. It doesn't cure your violation, but see, we are going to take care of this other problem as well. So this is what happens to us all the time.
But and I hate to get on my soapbox again about this, but you know, to Trustee Haber's comment about, you know, fixing this culvert because the resident doesn't want to do it. We have more than 70% in the streets of this village are private. And if you're going to fix somebody's culvert on a street that's public because you don't want them to have to deal with fixing their own culvert, but yet you're going to force a person that's on a private street to do it, I think that's a huge inequity. And so we really need to nail down the policy. I understand Pat's point about doing a huge construction project and how, you know, and, you know, we can get his information later, but, you know, these onesie twosie things, we need to get that policy straightened out or change our ordinance and just say, whatever we want to do, but we shouldn't have ordinances on the books that we're not following.
I agree. Trustee Clayton,
Pat, is it an emergency?
Is it an emergency? No, I mean, it's rare that a driveway culvert is ever an emergency, right? Unless it's caving in and, somebody can't get into their property. But driveway culverts are not often.
So is there any reason why we defer this decision till the policy is permitted?
Well, again, back to Bruce's point, so we've been corresponding back and forth with the two upstream property owners since March. I have every expectation that the two of them will be at the next board meeting. I gave them another 2 weeks yesterday because they said they couldn't make this board meeting. And part of it is that's been our policy. So I just continued with it. And then, of course, as Bruce mentioned, I wanted to be rid of no, it's that culvert is causing the problem, leave us alone answer. So is there any reason that we can't wait 2 weeks? No, other than just the mechanics of carrying out the two other enforcements adjacent to them.
may I ask, I'd like to ask a question of the attorney. Is it possible to take this under advisement and table this motion for another point in time when maybe we've had a little bit more information?
Sure.
Trustee Hollander?
What are we going to learn in 2 weeks? I mean, I'm not saying we should do this, but this is a whole policy decision that either we follow the policy, we don't, we can table this for 2 weeks, but I'm not so certain we're going to have a policy decision in that intervening time. To me, the question is how we're going to deal with the policy, not with this particular project.
In order to, without being too biased, I'm suggesting that perhaps we just take Pat's report under advisement and at some future point come back to it after we've had more opportunity to study a policy matter. 2 weeks is, I
agree. Yeah.
It could be longer than 2 weeks. If it's not an emergency,
All right.
perhaps a longer period of time.
So is it technically correct to move to table the motion?
Who made the motion?
I did.
I mean, we get a little bollocksed up with tabling motions. Michael, if you want to withdraw the motion and if the person who seconded it agrees, then we can just consider it another time.
Before I do that, could I get a little clarification though, with regard to whether or not Pat actually committed to doing this? Because if Pat committed to doing this, I do not want to pull the rug out from under Pat. And I think that we ought to move forward with this because I don't think as a policy, we should do that. We should pull the rug out from under Pat.
Okay.
I would second that idea.
Well, I appreciate that, and the short answer is yes. I've had conversations with that particular homeowner, but I made abundantly clear to the other two when they pointed to that culvert saying that's a real problem. And I said, I'll take care of that. And I being you.
I think we should call the question.
Okay. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
And rest assured, I will make no further commitments to replace driveway culverts until we have clarified our policy.
I'd also like to make sure that you don't commit to the other two upstream homeowners that you're gonna fix their ditches and like move the stones or whatever else is blocking the ditch.
Oh.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
You'll hear more in 2 weeks on that, I am certain.
Well, there's no old business. I know of no reason to go into executive session. Our next meeting is June 1st.
Chris,
Oh,
I have something for the order.
sorry.
John used to end the meetings. I don't know if that's still appropriate, but I just wanted to remind everybody that tonight is the Brushwoods program along with the RBC's Improving Backyard Habitat at 7 p.m. and there's Zoom instructions out. And if anybody's interested and needs the link, let me know and I'll forward it to you.
Sorry, Mike. Thank you very much for that. Is there anybody else who has any final comments? Questions, points of interest? A motion to adjourn, please.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Hey,
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Night.